Hello, beautiful people. My name is Athol. Let's jump into it. And today I'm continuing the series about anxious wives and what husbands can do to better understand them and better manage their relationships. So, the first thing I want to touch on today is that anxiety is good. It's normal. It's healthy. And to be honest, it's actually a requirement for being a functional, good adult. And we are all anxious to some degree. I talked about in the last couple of videos, if you think of anxiety being on that scale of 1 to 10, 10 being crippling anxiety, 1 being almost no anxiety at all, we all probably have a baseline level of anxiousness between 1 and 3. And that's really just hardwired into our DNA, and it just comes with us. And it's never going to change, and it's never going to go away because it's a requirement. We need this. Anxiety is designed to make sure that we don't let bad things happen to us. So it's your baseline level of anxiety that makes you look both ways before you step into a street. And for your ancestors, it was their anxiety that made them say, hey, maybe the kids shouldn't play in the long grass because that's where the tigers hang out and jump on people. And everyone who wasn't anxious played in the long grass and got eaten by tigers, didn't grow up, didn't make more of them. So we're all anxious to some degree. It's completely normal. And like I said, the purpose of anxiety is to make sure bad things don't happen to us. And what typically happens is if a lot of bad things have happened to someone, or really, really bad things have happened to someone, their baseline level of anxiety slowly starts going up and up. So she might have had, as fresh out of the box, an anxiety level of 3. She's a little anxious. But then you throw in some sort of abuse and neglect, and her anxiety level goes to a 4. You throw in some sort of really crappy boyfriends, her anxiety level goes to a 5. You throw in this, that, and the other that is just simply terrible, and anxiety can go to 6, 7, 8. So this is very often what happens, and this obviously happens to both men and women. So these sorts of things that typically are going to create high anxiety is from childhood, any form of abuse and neglect, whether that is physical, emotional, sexual, kind of doesn't matter for this purpose. Any or all of them are going to increase levels of anxiety. Anything where they felt abandoned and powerless to control the situation is going to increase their anxiety levels. And that can be as simple as they moved an awful lot when they were young and they kept losing friends all the time, and they just have this experience that relationships just end and go away and they can't stop. Or one of their parents died when they were young, and obviously on an intellectual level they know, hey, dad didn't want to die when I was 8 years old, but it still feels like dad left and was gone and disappeared on them. So there's a feeling of abandonment there. Or if they've, even as they're teens or young adults, if they've been repeatedly dumped in some way, without warning, without notice, they just suddenly weren't in a relationship anymore. All these things can increase their anxiety about sex and relationships. And obviously one of the big ones is if their parents have divorced. That's a really, really important thing that just makes them worry that relationships blow up, fail, and they can't stop it from happening. Now, as the husband of someone who has had all these experiences and her anxiety levels have risen, it's really important for you to understand and own this, that these are all things that have nothing to do with you. You weren't responsible for her crappy childhood. You weren't the boyfriends that dumped her in college. You never abused her. You never neglected her. These are all things that predate the relationship. And I'm going to get into this tomorrow, but I think I'm just going to touch on it now, that very often people who are highly anxious are also highly controlling. They can be very manipulative, and they can be emotionally abusive as they try and stop all the bad things from happening. They can often be control freaks. I'm going to talk a lot more about that tomorrow. But for now, knowing that all that stuff predates you means you can stand up for yourself when she's freaking out about something that isn't really related to you. The things that are related to you are the things that have happened in your relationship. And those things you really are responsible for, and you really need to pay close attention to, because you created some of this potentially, and you are potentially the only one that can help fix some of this. The stuff that predates you, that's pretty much her responsibility to get a handle on, and it's her responsibility to fix. You can assist in that, you can be supportive, you can be sympathetic to it, but it's the stuff before you, that's her responsibility. The stuff that you've done inside your own relationship that you can control and you can do differently, that's your responsibility. And you can have done a few different things that might have increased your overall anxiety levels in your relationship. One of them is just sort of all-purpose, sort of not paying attention, not hitting her love language, not meeting her brand of comfort that she particularly likes, and basically just sort of not being present and connective to her. This can just slowly build up over time, and after several years of her feeling like you're just not that interested, she can become increasingly more anxious about the relationship. It may also be a handful of really critical moments of neglect where you've really screwed up, you've really hurt her, and they've just marked her soul, so to speak. And these can be really big things like missing the birth of a child, or maybe one of her parents died and you were pretty nonplussed about the whole thing, and she went to the funeral alone, and when she was there at the funeral alone, she felt horribly abandoned, horribly neglected, like you just didn't care. So these can be what I call critical moments of neglect, and if you can figure out what they are, it's really important that you do that. The other things, if you are trying to force the issue on any kind of love, sex, and affection, that can become something that increasingly increases her anxiety levels. It makes her more and more stressed out about it. The other thing is, if you are someone that is somewhat emotionally unstable, if some days you're really up and some days you're really down, some days you're really nice, some days you're a little bit mean, some days you're completely on point, and others you're totally unreliable and a little bit crazy. This can just make you anxious, because instead of you being some sort of source of support and comfort, you're becoming a source of stress and worry. She's not relaxed around you. She's always walking on eggshells because she feels like she has to manage your behavior in some way. She has to step around you because she doesn't know how you are any particular day. So what do you do for this stuff? Well, for the stuff that is not your fault, all the stuff before the relationship happened, I think it's important to know what those things are, because they are kind of scattered like landmines. And these are all things that are her hot button issues, where she can be triggered and be overreactive more than you would think. So, for example, if she has some sort of fear of abandonment, first two boyfriends just dumped her out of the blue, dad disappeared when she was 6 years old. If you're making any kind of, divorce threats or threatening, we should have some kind of separation, you're absolutely hammering in on that fear of abandonment. That's like hitting her personal trigger point. It's hitting a landmine. She's going to be incredibly upset, incredibly stressed, worried, freaked out. So if you can figure out what these landmines are, it's helpful to just avoid them if at all possible. For the things you are responsible for, I think you basically have to do a few things. Well, the first one, very obviously, is stop doing them. Just stop doing them. The second one being apologizing for the things that you can recognize that you did wrong. The third thing being, if you can repair any kind of damage, if there's anything that you can specifically do to make any of those situations significantly better, that's really helpful to do. And the fourth one, which is what you're going to do consistently, is you just have to be a better guy about this stuff. You just have to pay attention to what actually creates true comfort for her. You have to pay attention to figure out what relieves her anxiousness and do more of that. Hopefully, as you avoid her hot button trigger issues, landmines, so you don't make her anxiety way worse, and hopefully as you consistently provide actual comfort that is effective and good, hopefully, over time, slowly but surely, your baseline levels of anxiety come down. And like I said in the last couple of videos, as your anxiety levels come down, it's so much easier to pass that comfort link in the chain of seduction, which means she's so much easier to live with, which means your initiations work frequently, the sex gets better, she's more relaxed, and to be blunt, she's just straight up happier, more relaxed, and enjoying the relationship a whole lot more. So tomorrow I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about what to do when she is just vomiting her anxiety on you and what to do about that whole thing. Catch you later.